Hello there. Hello there and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Casey and I am the designer behind Pattern Scout. I design sewing patterns and I have this YouTube channel where I share all sorts of sewing content, sewing inspiration, sewing tutorials, and just sewing inspiration. It's the end of the year. We're wrapping up a great year here at Pattern Scout, and I don't think I'm going to be doing a whole lot of sewing on new projects before the end of the year wraps up, so I thought I would just kind of share some of my favorite projects from the year. In the past, I have done a full overview of everything that I have made in a year. That's what I did last year, and it's kind of a lot. I mean, I really do sew quite a lot, so it's a lot to share. And I thought it would be more appropriate for me just to share the things that I'm the most proud of or the things that I wear the most. And I decided to narrow that list down to 5 makes, 5 of my most favorite things that I've made this year. As I was making this list, I realized that I don't really use a lot of patterns. I do a lot of pattern drafting of my own, or I will copy a garment that I already own, and if I do use a pattern, I often hack it into a new style. I definitely do a lot of my garment sewing kind of on the fly. I do a lot of design development as I'm working through the pattern. So I don't really have specific patterns to share, but I do have videos here on my channel for each of these projects if you're interested in making something similar for yourself. So I will put links to all of those videos in the description below this video and also in the cards, actually up here in the eye. So if you click that little eye, it'll have a drop down and it'll show you some of the videos that I'm talking about in this video. All right, so let's just get right into it. The first item that is on my top 5 is this pleated dress. This dress was a make that was inspired by a dress that I bought when I was on my trip to Spain this summer. I went to Spain for a wedding and did a little shopping while I was there, and the dress was a simple silhouette, just a rectangle with pleats across the front and the back bodice. It kind of gave it this flowy, billowy silhouette, and I thought it would be something really nice to make for myself, to replicate for myself, and to also share here on the channel and show you guys how to make something similar. GK Fashion Fabrics gifted me this kind of modern print rayon fabric a couple of years ago, actually. When I first got it, I really liked the fabric, but it was one of those fabrics where I was like, I don't know what I want to make out of this. I had a few ideas for things that I could possibly make, but nothing that was like really getting me excited, so I held on to the fabric for a long time. I thought it was just the best fabric for this particular style, and I just wore the dress so much. I got so much use out of it, and I don't normally wear like maxi length dresses, but this one just fit my style so well, and I feel like it worked well with other items in my closet. And it kind of got me out of my normal wardrobe, like summer wardrobe rut that I can kind of get into, so it was definitely a success for that reason. I shared the entire process for making that dress. It's really simple. It's just a rectangle of fabric. You don't need a pattern. You just need a couple of body measurements, and you need to do a little bit of calculation to figure out how wide to make the fabric. But once you get that, it's actually pretty straightforward, and it's kind of a meditative sew too, but it goes relatively quickly. So definitely happy with that make. I'll probably end up making more dresses like that in the future, and I actually really wanted to make a tank top version of that dress. So maybe next summer I'll have a chance to get to that project and make myself a cute little tank top with the same technique. All right, next up is another thing that I wore constantly this summer and has actually kind of carried over into my fall and winter wardrobe, is square neck tees and tanks. In the same video where I made that pleated dress, I also made a tank top that's just basically a tube top with some really simple straps on it. I actually made the first version of that tank top before my trip to Spain because I wanted a really simple tank top that I could kind of mix and match with a lot of the bottoms in my wardrobe that I was bringing with me on that trip. And I ended up wearing those tank tops all summer long. They were just so simple and so easy to style, and they were easy to make too. Again, I didn't need a pattern. It was just a few rectangles of fabric to create those tops, and I shared the process of making those in that same video with the pleated dress. Now, a couple of summers ago, I did a pattern hack of my comfy tee and made it into a square neck tee. And since then, I have iterated on that particular design over and over again, and have made myself so many different types of square neck t-shirts. And I finally settled on a design that I think I really like. The neckline is so feminine and it's just so easy to style. It's very simple, but it's also very comfortable. So I have been wearing those square neck tees on repeat, and it has carried me through spring, summer, fall, and winter. And I am working on an expansion pack for that comfy tee pattern that has a square neckline. And I plan to release that in the beginning of 2023, so it won't be long. I'll have a new pattern out for that. So the next item on my top 5 list is this lace dress that I made also to wear to a wedding in Spain. So this trip to Spain this summer was really a catalyst for me to kind of get my head around the kind of capsule wardrobe that I wanted to have for the summer. I knew I wanted to pack as light as I could and bring pieces that could be easily mixed and matched, but also not feel like I was just lugging around a huge wardrobe the entire time we were there. One of the things that was not kind of part of that capsule wardrobe, but was something that I needed kind of special, was this dress to wear to a wedding. And I'm just really proud of that make. That was the first kind of more formal garment that I've ever made for myself. I used my bodice sloper as a starting point, and then I used the book Pattern Making for Fashion Design to help me draft the different parts of the kind of broad top foundation bodice. And again, I have a video where I kind of shared the process of how I did that. And if you are interested in learning how to draft your own bodice sloper using Adobe Illustrator, which is what I use to draft my patterns, I have a class over on Skillshare. I'll put a link to that in the description below as well. That wasn't my first time working with lace, but it was definitely the most involved project that I had ever made using lace. And I created an interlined and lined dress so that, you know, you could wear the dress and not totally see through the lace. Also in that video, I shared my fitting process, and I think that's a pretty good representation of what it's like. Even when you're drafting something from scratch for your own body, you're still probably gonna have to do some fitting on it. So I did share the process of going through the fitting on that dress and how I got to a really nice fit. Now, moving more into the fall season of this year, another thing, actually 2 things that I made that I loved, I was so happy with how they turned out, were mesh shirts. I'm actually wearing one of the shirts right now. I made this one that's kind of a collared version. It's like a button-up collared version of the shirt. And then I also made one that's kind of a mock neck, turtleneck version. And I loved how both of these shirts turned out so much. There were 2 makes that just felt like me. They felt like the kind of wardrobe pieces that I aspire to have. And I was very proud that I made them. The fabric is a stretchy mesh fabric, and it was a little bit kind of finicky to work with, but it wasn't the worst, actually. I was actually surprised that I was able to make it through these with not a whole lot of trouble. They work so well with so many items in my wardrobe, and I have found myself kind of building my wardrobe around these items and picking fabrics that I think will look good with these, just so that I'll have more excuses to wear them. Now, both of these shirts were adapted or hacked from my Comfy Tee pattern. I use that Comfy Tee pattern for a lot of, I use it all the time. I'm constantly hacking it into new shirts. Anyhow, I also shared the process in that video for how I kind of made modifications to that pattern. I also really like the prints on these fabrics. They kind of have a vintage sort of 90s or even 70s style print on the fabrics. And the fabric is really stretchy and soft, so they're very comfortable to wear, but I feel like they look a little bit more elevated than just a basic t-shirt. Definitely love these mesh shirts. And last but not least on my list of my top 5 favorite things is my trench coat that I recently made. So I just finished this a couple months ago. Actually, was it a couple months ago? It was actually probably less than a couple. It was like maybe like a month and a half ago. I can't even remember. Anyway, I finished it recently. It was one of those projects that I've been wanting to do for a year and a half or more, but I kept putting it off because it's not really meant to be a winter weather jacket. It's more of kind of like a spring or fall jacket. Whenever I've sat down to try to work my way through designing this jacket, the weather changes and then I lose interest in the jacket because I'm like, well, now I can't really wear it. And that kind of happened when I was working on the jacket this time. Basically, as soon as I finished the jacket, the temperature dropped, and I've only been able to wear it a couple of times, but I'm very happy it's done because I cannot wait to wear it in the spring and in the next fall. So I finally finished this jacket. I copied the shape of a blazer that I thrifted like a year or more ago. I share the process in the video about how I traced around the pieces of this blazer without having to take the blazer apart. Like I did it with the blazer completely intact. And then I also hacked the pattern that I traced from the blazer and did things like to make it a longer coat. And then I also widened the lapels and the collar so that it would have a little bit more dramatic lapel and collar and have a little bit of a 70s flair. So I've mentioned before how much I love making outerwear, and I actually have another outerwear project planned for soon. Like I'm gonna be working on one soon. But outerwear is one of those projects that kind of forces me to slow down a little bit and really get into the details of creating a tailored garment. And it can be a little bit frustrating and overwhelming at times, but once you finish, it is so rewarding. So I'm very happy with that coat. It turned out beautifully. I have gotten to wear it a couple of times. It's very comfortable. I feel very cool when I wear that coat, and yeah, I love it. I'm so happy with it. All right, so those are my top 5 makes from 2022. I have made and shared actually a lot of things over the last year. So if you're curious to see some of the other things that I've made, just go browse back through some of my old videos. Shameless plug here. Definitely go check out some of those. I've made a lot of things that I'm really happy with this year. So there were a lot of close contenders, but I just wanted to get it down to 5. You know, I thought that would be a little bit more manageable. Over the course of my sewing career, sewing journey, however you want to put it, I have found myself using like patterns less and less. Or if I do use a pattern, I'll, use it over and over and hack it into new styles, or I'll end up just drafting myself something completely from scratch. And I think that that really feeds my creative soul a little bit more than just following a pattern exactly as it is. So when I find pieces that I'm inspired by, I'm usually inspired more by fashion that I find online, less so by patterns that I might be finding. So a lot of times I'll find the inspiration before I find the pattern, and then I kind of have to like work my way backward to figure out how I'm going to construct the garment. And that's really the way that I like to work the most. It also helps me explore new techniques, which I really love. And I think that is a large part of why a lot of these makes ended up as my favorites, because I was exploring new techniques, new ideas. What can I make with a rectangle of fabric for the dress and the tank tops? Can I work with this kind of finicky, stretchy fabric in a mesh fabric? And the answer is yes, you can too. I really like this shape of this garment that I found at the thrift store. I want to remake it and change it and make it into something a little bit different. Can I do that? So I've really been embracing finding new ways to bring new items into my wardrobe. But I definitely would encourage anyone who is kind of feeling a little bit uninspired by some of the patterns they may find to sort of think outside the box and start trying to hack your patterns or hack your garments, or find other ways to get to the types of garments you want in your closet. This is something that I've mentioned before, but this year I also decided to take a step back from Instagram, and I kind of found that I was much more content with the things that I was making, and I felt less compelled to just consume a lot of patterns and fabric. I mean, I love all that stuff, and I still definitely consumed a fair share of fabric, but I think it definitely helped me kind of sit with my own ideas a little bit more and think a little bit more creatively about how I was going to be adding things to my wardrobe this year. In general, I feel like my wardrobe improved a lot this year. Just from a personal standpoint, I'm much more pleased with the things that I have in my wardrobe. And I think that that had to do a lot with just an intention to kind of keep building on each make. So I would make something and I would think, well, what do I want to go with this? Or even when I made the thing, I would think, how do I want to style this? And it would kind of inform the next 2 or 3 projects that I was going to be working on. And this approach of like not trying to reinvent the wardrobe wheel every year and just building on the things that I already have was actually really successful for me and made me feel really good about the things that I was wearing. All right, I think that is it. I have put links in the description to everything that I talked about today and up here in the cards. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more from me, please be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I release new videos in the future. You can also sign up for my email list where I share all about any new pattern releases or anything else new that I'm working on. And if you're interested in shopping any of the patterns that I have created, I do have a website and a little pattern shop if you're interested in that. I've put a link in the description to that as well. Yeah, I think that is it. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.